Ambassador Jihan walked into the massive council chamber, her boots clicking against the smooth crystal floor. The room stretched out like a giant dome above her head, filled with floating platforms where alien representatives sat in their fancy chairs. Some looked like tall, thin ghosts. Others had multiple arms and glowing eyes. All of them were staring down at her like she was something they found stuck to their shoe. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jihan began, her voice echoing in the huge space. "The Zephyrian swarm has already destroyed 3 star systems, billions of lives lost in just 5 days. Earth offers our full military support to stop this threat before it spreads further." A sound like wind chimes filled the air. That was how the Altarian High Chancellor laughed. "Military support? From humans?" The translator made his voice sound like music, but Jihan could hear the mockery behind it. "Your species has been in space for barely 200 years. We have maintained peace for over 10,000. Captain Minho shifted in his seat in the observer section. He watched the alien delegates whisper to each other in their strange languages. None of them looked worried. They looked annoyed, like someone had interrupted their afternoon tea to tell them about a small kitchen fire. "The Zephyrians are not like other enemies," Jihan continued, trying to keep her voice steady. "They eat technology. They adapt to energy weapons within minutes. Our kinetic weapons and chemical explosives might be exactly what we need to fight them." This time, several aliens made their laughing sounds together. A Centauri delegate, all blue skin and cold logic, spoke up. "Kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, how charmingly primitive. We will solve this crisis through diplomatic channels and advanced technology, as civilized beings should." "Diplomatic channels?" Jihan's voice got a little sharper. "You want to negotiate with a swarm of space locusts that eats planets for breakfast?" The Vorthak representative floated higher on his platform. His body looked like living crystal, and light danced through him when he spoke. "Perhaps if we wait, the Zephyrians will consume what they need and move on. Violence should always be the last option." Jihan felt her hands clench into fists. Back on Earth, her daughter Somi was probably getting ready for school right now. Her son Jiho was likely practicing soccer with his friends. They had no idea that alien bureaucrats were discussing whether their entire species deserved protection. "Every hour you waste talking, more people die," she said. "The Corothian Empire sent a distress signal 6 hours ago. Now there's nothing but silence from their entire sector." "The Corothians were always dramatic," the Altarian Chancellor replied. "I'm sure they've simply relocated to safer positions." High above in the observer gallery, Minho watched his ambassador being dismissed like a child who didn't understand grown-up problems. These aliens had lived in peace for so long they'd forgotten what real danger looked like. They thought everything could be solved with pretty words and advanced technology. "The human proposal is rejected," the council announced together. "Primitive warfare has no place in civilized space. This session is concluded." As the alien delegates began floating away to their next meeting, Jihan stood alone in the center of the vast chamber. She touched her communication device. "Admiral Hyun, this is Jihan." They said no. The reply came back immediately from Earth. "Copy that, Ambassador, then we do this alone." 3 weeks after the council meeting, Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his worst fears come true. The main screen showed what used to be the Corothian Empire, now just empty space where 50 billion people once lived. No debris, no wreckage, nothing. The Zephyrians had eaten everything, even the planets themselves. "Sir, we're getting another emergency broadcast," Commander Subin called out from her station. Her usually calm voice had a slight shake to it now. "The Zenthari defense grid just went dark." Hyun closed his eyes for a moment. The Zenthari had the most advanced military in the galaxy. Their energy shields could stop anything. Their plasma cannons could crack moons in half. It had taken the Zephyrians exactly 6 hours to wipe them out completely. 18 billion casualties, Subin continued, reading the final transmission. The bioships just absorbed their weapons. Every time the Zenthari fired their plasma cannons, the creatures got stronger. On the tactical display, red markers showed the swarm's path across the galaxy. It looked like an infection spreading through a body. Each marker represented a civilization that no longer existed. The peaceful melody with their beautiful singing cities, the ancient Krell who had been building wonders since before humans discovered fire. All gone. "They're not just killing," observed Lieutenant Dohyun from the communications station. "They're consuming everything. The bioships eat the metal from destroyed spacecraft. They digest the energy from power cores. Even the organic matter from the planets themselves." Hyun had seen the footage from the first attacks. The Zephyrian bioships looked like giant insects crossed with deep-sea creatures. They pulsed with veins of sickly light, and when they opened their feeding ports, space itself seemed to scream. Weapons that should have destroyed them only made them hungrier. His personal communicator buzzed. Captain Minho's voice came through from the outer colonies. "Admiral, I've got Settlement Leader Gina and Commander Do-hyun on the line. They want to know if the evacuation order still stands." "What evacuation order?" Hyun asked, though he already knew the answer would make him angry. "The Galactic Council sent a message an hour ago. All human settlements in sectors 7 through 12 need to pack up and leave. They want to relocate more valuable refugees to our colonies." Hyun felt his jaw tighten. Even now, with half the galaxy burning, the aliens still thought humans were disposable. "What did our people say?" Minho's voice carried a hint of pride. "Gina told them where they could stick their evacuation order. Do-hyun said his people would rather die fighting than run away like cowards." Every settlement commander gave the same answer. Through the bridge windows, Hyun could see human cargo ships heading toward the outer rim instead of away from it. They weren't carrying refugees. They were loaded with weapons, ammunition, and supplies. While the rest of the galaxy fled toward the core systems, humans were moving toward the danger. "Sir," Subin called out again. "Long-range sensors are picking up the swarm's next target. They're heading for New Busan Colony." New Busan was home to 2 million humans, families who had left Earth to build something better among the stars, kids who had never seen their home planet, but still called themselves human with pride. "Signal all ships," Hyun ordered. "We're not running. Send word to every human settlement. Activate Thunder Rock protocols immediately." "Yes, sir," his crew responded together. The aliens could keep their counsels and their pretty words. Humans would do what they did best: fight back. Ambassador Jihan stared at the holographic message floating above her desk, reading it for the third time. She couldn't believe what the Galactic Council was asking. No, not asking, demanding. All human settlements in sectors 7 through 12 must be evacuated immediately, the message stated in cold official language. These facilities will be repurposed to house more culturally significant refugee populations. Human colonists will be relocated to temporary shelters in the galactic core. She slammed her hand on the desk, making her coffee cup jump. More culturally significant? Temporary shelters? The council was basically telling humans to give up their homes so that alien refugees could move in. The same aliens who had laughed at human offers to help fight the Zephyrians. Her communication device buzzed. Admiral Hyun's face appeared on the screen, and she could see the anger in his eyes even through the fuzzy transmission. "Did you see it?" he asked without any greeting. "I saw it," Jihan replied. "They want us to abandon our colonies, give up everything we've built out here." 20 years, Hyun said, his voice tight with controlled fury. 20 years some of those families have been building their lives on those worlds, growing crops in alien soil, teaching their kids to walk under foreign stars. And now the council wants them to just pack up and leave because suddenly our homes are useful. Jihan pulled up the colony reports on her secondary screen. New Busan Colony had just finished building their new school. Sejong Settlement had finally gotten their mining operation profitable. Incheon Station was 3 months away from completing their orbital shipyard. All of it would be handed over to aliens who had spent decades calling humans primitive. "What are you going to tell them?" she asked. Hyun's smile was sharp as a knife. "I'm going to tell them exactly what I think of their evacuation order." 2 hours later, Hyun's response went out on all galactic channels. Every alien government, every refugee fleet, every council member received the same message. "This is Admiral Hyun of the Human Defense Force. We have received your evacuation order. Our response is negative. Human colonies are implementing defensive positions. We are staying to fight." The reaction was immediate. Within minutes, Council member Zarthul was on the emergency channel, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid, panicked speech. "You cannot be serious. The Zephyrians will reach your settlements within days." Your kinetic weapons and chemical explosives are useless against bioships. This is suicide. Colonel Wook, listening from his command post on New Busan, couldn't help but grin. He turned to his weapons officer. Nari, how are those proximity mines looking? All 2,000 are armed and ready, sir, she replied, checking her tablet. Junho has the nuclear contingency on standby. Chemical payloads are loaded and distributed. Suicide? Wook said into his communicator. We prefer to call it aggressive problem-solving. The Council's emergency session that night was chaos. Aliens who had lived in peace for millennia couldn't understand why humans would choose to fight instead of run. Their translators kept malfunctioning as they tried to express concepts like stubborn pride and death before dishonor. Meanwhile, across the human colonies, families made their choice. Settlement leader Gina gathered her people in the town square of New Busan. Anyone who wants to leave can take the next transport to the core systems, she announced. No shame. In keeping your family safe. Not one person moved toward the transport ships. Instead, they moved toward the weapons depot. The sky above New Busan colony turned black as the Zephyrian swarm blotted out the sun. Settlement Commander Gina watched from her underground command bunker as hundreds of bioships descended through the atmosphere like giant pulsing insects. Each one was the size of a city block, covered in writhing tentacles and glowing with sickly green veins. All defense positions. This is command. Gina spoke into her headset, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Weapons are free. Light. Set them up. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. The aliens expected to see the same thing they'd witnessed at every other world. Energy weapons bouncing harmlessly off bioship hulls while the creatures fed and grew stronger. Instead, they watched streams of metal slugs tear through the organic armor like hot knives through butter. Lieutenant Seok's artillery battery opened fire first. His massive railguns launched depleted uranium rounds at incredible speed, punching clean holes through bioships that had shrugged off the most advanced plasma cannons in the galaxy. Direct hit on the big ugly one, Seok shouted over the noise, watching a mothership the size of a skyscraper spin out of control. Yuna, please tell me you're getting this on camera. Every second of it, his communications officer replied, broadcasting the footage to shocked alien observers throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians had never encountered anything like this. Their bio-armor was designed to absorb and redirect energy, but solid chunks of metal moving at thousands of miles per hour. That was something completely different. Major Wook's Chemical Warfare Division joined the fight next. His modified missile launchers sent clouds of industrial-grade acid into the swarm. The bioships that flew through the clouds started dissolving. From the outside in, their organic hulls bubbling and melting like ice cream in summer heat. Chemical strike successful, Wook reported. The acid is eating through their hulls faster than they can repair the damage. But the real surprise came when Commander Nari triggered the proximity mines. As bioships swooped low to begin their feeding, they ran straight into fields of nuclear explosives that had been buried around the colony's perimeter. The first explosion lit up the battlefield like a second sun, then the second, then the third. Bioships that had survived planet-killing energy weapons were vaporized by what the galaxy considered ancient, primitive technology. Nuclear mines are working perfectly, Nari called out, watching her tactical display as red dots disappeared one by one. They never saw it coming. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. Not a single Zephyrian bioship remained intact. The colony hadn't lost a single person. The defending humans were celebrating like they'd just won the galaxy's biggest sporting event. Lieutenant Seok was dancing on top of his artillery platform, singing an old Earth song at the top of his lungs. Major Wook's chemical teams were sharing bottles of something that definitely wasn't regulation. Commander Nari was taking selfies with the burning wreckage of a mothership in the background. Across the galaxy, alien governments watched the footage in complete silence. The Altarian High Chancellor had to replay the battle 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. The logical Centauri ran the numbers again and again, but the math didn't lie. The primitive humans had achieved a perfect victory, using weapons that shouldn't have worked. The Council's emergency meeting that night had only one item on the agenda. How did they do that? For the first time in galactic history, the word human wasn't followed by laughter. It was followed by very uncomfortable silence. News of the New Busan victory spread across the galaxy faster than the Zephyrian swarm itself. But what shocked alien civilizations wasn't just that humans had won, it was how much they seemed to enjoy winning. Captain Day stood on the bridge of his modified destroyer, the Incheon Hammer, watching 3 Zephyrian bioships approaching. His position: instead of turning to run like every other species had done, he grinned and ordered full speed ahead. "Ramming speed!" he called out to his crew. "Let's see how these bugs like a face full of reinforced steel." The Incheon Hammer had been modified with a massive spike on the front, like an old-fashioned battering ram but designed for space combat. When it punched through the first bioship at full velocity, the organic hull exploded in a shower of green fluid and writhing tentacles. Day's crew cheered like they were at a festival. His weapons officer was actually laughing as they pulled away from the wreckage. Across the outer rim, similar scenes played out on every human world. Commander Hana's chemical warfare teams had developed something they called bug spray, a mixture of industrial solvents that turned Zephyrian bioships into puddles of organic soup. Her soldiers wore skull-painted masks and played death metal music while they worked. Another successful extermination job, Hana reported after clearing out an entire swarm nest. Her team was covered in alien gore and grinning like maniacs. "The bugs really hate our music." That was another thing that confused the galaxy. Major Kyung had discovered that certain types of human music, especially the loud, aggressive kind, somehow disrupted the Zephyrians' hive-mind communication. So human forces started broadcasting heavy metal and punk rock during battles, turning warfare into a concert. "We've got the enemy surrounded and the volume turned up to 11, Kyung shouted over the noise during one particularly intense fight. "They can't coordinate their attacks when they can't hear each other think." The footage that reached alien governments was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Humans didn't just fight, they seemed to love fighting. They painted kill marks on their ships. They gave their weapons ridiculous names like Planet Cracker and Bug Zapper. They took pictures with destroyed bioships like tourists at famous landmarks. Admiral Hyun himself led boarding parties against Zephyrian motherships, wielding a modified shotgun he called Persuader. The galaxy watched in horror and fascination as the human admiral personally cleared out bioship corridors, moving through the organic tunnels like he was taking a pleasant morning walk. "The humans fight with passion," whispered a traumatized Altarian refugee who had witnessed a human rescue operation. "They don't just want to survive, they want to completely destroy their enemies and have fun doing it." The term "angry humans" started appearing in alien news broadcasts, but it wasn't entirely accurate. The humans weren't angry, they were enthusiastic. They approached warfare like it was both a science and an art form, something to be studied, perfected, and yes, enjoyed. Commander Su's marine unit was filmed laughing while they used flamethrowers to clear Zephyrian breeding pods. They moved through the burning hive like they were cleaning out a garage, joking and chatting while they worked. "Just another day at the office," Su said to the camera, casual as you please, while bioship explosions lit up the sky behind her. The galaxy was learning something important. When you're fighting for extinction, you don't want the most civilized warriors on your side. You want the ones who smile while they're winning. The Galactic Council demanded answers, so Dr. Rin agreed to give them a demonstration. She stood in front of a captured Zephyrian bioship fragment, holding what looked like an ordinary bottle of beer in one hand and a portable speaker in the other. "You want to know how we're winning?" she asked the assembled alien observers through the video link. "It's simple. We think differently." She poured the beer over the bioship sample. The organic material immediately began smoking and dissolving, like ice melting in hot water. "Ethanol," she explained calmly. "The Zephyrians evolved to handle every type of energy weapon in the galaxy, but they never encountered fermented grain alcohol. To them, it's pure poison." The Centauri representative's logical mind struggled to process this information. "You're telling us that beer is an effective weapon against the swarm?" "Not just beer," Dr. Rin replied with a slight smile. "Wine, whiskey, vodka, anything with alcohol content above 12%. We've been loading our missiles with the stuff. Turns out the galaxy's most feared predator can't handle a good drink. She switched on the portable speaker, filling the room with heavy metal music. The bio-ship fragment started twitching and writhing like it was in pain. Sound waves at specific frequencies disrupt their neural networks, she continued. The louder and more aggressive the music, the more it hurts them. Colonel Tyke's team discovered this completely by accident. Across the galaxy, Colonel Tyke was giving his own demonstration to a group of shell-shocked alien military commanders. He led them into a secure laboratory where a living Zephyrian specimen was kept in a containment field, something no other species had managed to accomplish. While you were debating surrender terms, we were studying the enemy, Tyke explained, walking casually around the writhing creature. My research team spent 3 weeks mapping every nerve pathway, every biological system, every weakness. The aliens stared in horror at the captive bioship fragment. It was about the size of a car, covered in pulsing veins and snapping tentacles. The fact that humans had caught one alive was disturbing enough. The fact that they were calmly experimenting, and it was terrifying. Jin here discovered their reproductive cycle, Tyke continued, pointing to one of his researchers. Turns out they're vulnerable during breeding season. Hit them with the right chemical compound at the right time, and the whole hive goes sterile. Dr. Jin held up a spray bottle filled with what looked like cleaning solution. Standard household. Ammonia, she said cheerfully. Mixed with a few other common chemicals, we've been using it to sterilize entire sectors. The alien observers were beginning to understand something that made them very uncomfortable. The primitive humans hadn't won through luck or accident. They'd won through decades of careful preparation and study. Ambassador Jihan appeared on another screen from Earth Command. Every human weakness you laughed at became our strength, she said. Our curiosity made us study the enemy when you were too afraid to get close. Our aggression made us fight when you wanted to negotiate. Our refusal to accept defeat made us find solutions when everyone else gave up. Commander Bora joined the conference from her frontline position. You wanted a civilized response to an uncivilized threat, she said bluntly. Civilized species are extinct now, you're getting us instead. The demonstration ended with uncomfortable silence from the alien observers. They were finally starting to understand that humans didn't fight like other species. They fought to win. The message arrived on Admiral Hyun's personal communication channel at 300 hours ship time. He'd been expecting it for weeks, but it still made him smile when he saw who was calling. High Chancellor Veltar of the Altarian Consortium appeared on the screen, but he looked nothing like the proud, dismissive alien who had laughed at humans months earlier. His elegant features were drawn with exhaustion, and his usual musical voice cracked with desperation. Admiral Hyun, he began, the words clearly difficult for him to speak. The Altarian government formally requests assistance from human forces. Hyun let the silence stretch for a moment. Behind Veltar, he could see the chaos of an alien. Command center in full panic mode. Alarms were blaring and refugees were streaming past in the background. What kind of assistance? Hyun asked calmly. Military protection for our remaining colonies, Veltar replied, his pride visibly crumbling with each word. We acknowledge our previous errors in judgment regarding human capabilities. It was the closest thing to an apology the galaxy had ever heard from an Altarian. Hyun's communications officer, Captain Ray, raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Transmit your fleet positions and defensive requirements, Hyun replied without missing a beat. Captain Ray will coordinate joint operations with your forces. Thank you, Veltar whispered, and the transmission ended. Within the hour, similar requests started flooding in from across the galaxy. The logical Centauri admitted their calculations had been insufficient. The peaceful Vorthak begged for human marines to defend their crystal cities. Even the proud Etherians, who had barely acknowledged human existence, sent formal requests for protection. Each request was met with immediate human response. No lectures about past insults, no demands for apologies. Just soldiers, ships, and weapons heading toward alien worlds that needed help. Captain Minho found himself coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history from his command ship. The main tactical display showed human forces spreading out like a protective net across hundreds of star systems. Hi, take your squadron to the Centauri home system, he ordered into his headset. "Their defense grid is completely down. You'll be working with their science ships. They've got some useful sensor data." "Copy that, sir," came the reply. "What?" "About their energy weapons. Leave them behind. Load up with nuclear torpedoes and chemical warheads, standard bug hunting gear." On another channel, he was coordinating with Commander Wu. "The Vorthak crystal cities are beautiful, but completely defenseless. Your Marines will need to set up ground-based defenses around their population centers." "Understood," Wu replied. "My people are already loading the transports. The Vorthak are scared, but they're good people. We'll keep them safe." The change was remarkable. Alien species that had spent millennia developing sophisticated energy weapons were now learning to use human-designed kinetic cannons. Civilizations that had never raised their voices in anger were broadcasting human war songs to disrupt Zephyrian communications. Admiral Hyun watched the tactical reports flowing in from across the galaxy. Human commanders were now leading mixed fleets of alien vessels, all armed with primitive human weapons that actually worked against the bioships. "Sir," Captain Ray reported, "we're getting success reports from 17 different sectors. The combined fleets are pushing the swarm back for the first time since this war started." For the first time in months, the red markers on the galaxy map were moving backward instead of forward. The tide was finally turning, and it was turning because the galaxy had finally learned to fight like humans. The largest fleet in Galactic. History assembled at the edge of Zephyrian space. Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at thousands of ships from dozens of different species. But these weren't the same elegant vessels that had fled in terror months earlier. Now they bristled with human weapons and flew human battle flags alongside their own. "All units, this is Admiral Hyun," he broadcast on the combined fleet channel. His voice reached every ship in the massive armada. "Today we don't fight as separate species. We fight as one galaxy with one heart and one voice." He turned to Ambassador Jihan at the communications station. "Signal the attack." What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Graceful Altarian cruisers launched, crude nuclear torpedoes that tore through bioship hulls like paper. Logical Centauri vessels broadcast human death metal music that sent entire Zephyrian swarms into confusion. Peaceful Vorthak frigates deployed chemical weapons with names like Soulfire and Busan Thunder. Captain Day led the first wave, his ramming ship Incheon Hammer charging straight into the heart of the enemy formation. But this time he wasn't alone. Alien vessels flanked him on both sides, their crews shouting human battle cries in their own languages. "For the galaxy," came the transmission from a Centauri captain who had never raised his voice before in his life. "Make them pay," screamed a Vorthak commander, her crystalline voice cracking with emotion she'd never felt before. The Zephyrian homeworld burned under their combined assault. Bioships that had seemed unstoppable now fell by the hundreds as mixed-species crews worked, together with deadly efficiency. Commander Nari coordinated artillery strikes between human destroyers and alien cruisers. "Fire mission incoming from Sector 7, she called out. "Human batteries will fire first, followed by Altarian plasma cannons. Let's see how the bugs..." Like synchronized bombardment, the results were devastating. Human kinetic rounds punched holes in bioship armor, and then alien energy weapons poured through the gaps like water through a broken dam. Major Kyung's Marines fought alongside warriors from 6 different species, moving through Zephyrian breeding chambers with perfect coordination. A Vorthak crystal being provided light, while human soldiers cleared corridors with flamethrowers. Centauri drones scouted ahead, while Altarian warriors covered the rear. "This is how it's supposed to be," Kyung said over the comm channel, as they secured another section of the enemy mothership. Different species, same fight, same goal. But the real miracle happened when they reached the Zephyrian Queen Mind itself. The massive creature, the size of a city block, faced something it had never encountered in millions of years of evolution. Not just one species fighting for survival, but an entire galaxy united in its determination to destroy their enemy completely. The Queen Mind tried its usual tactics. It adapted to energy weapons, absorbed kinetic rounds, even attempted to feed on the chemical weapons. But for every adaptation it made, the combined fleet had 3 more types of attack ready. "She can't keep up," reported Dr. Rin from the science station. The Queen is trying to counter human tactics, Altarian tactics, Centauri tactics, and Vorthak tactics all at the same time. Her biological systems are overloading. The final assault came from all directions at once. Human nuclear weapons, Altarian plasma cannons, Centauri particle beams, and Vorthak crystal resonators hit the Queen Mind simultaneously. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, the Zephyrian homeworld was nothing but cooling debris, and the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was finally dead. 6 months after the Zephyrian Queen's death, the galaxy looked completely different. The new Galactic Council met aboard the human flagship New Sol, floating in orbit around Earth. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Humanity now sat at the center of galactic civilization. Admiral Hyun walked into the council chamber, wearing his simple human uniform. No fancy decorations or glowing robes like the alien delegates used to wear. But when he entered the room, every representative stood up. The same beings who had once laughed at human primitiveness now showed the respect that should have been given from the beginning. "We called you angry," said Veltar, the former Altarian High Chancellor who now served as his species representative to the Human Defense Council. His musical voice carried genuine shame. "We were completely wrong. You weren't angry at all. You were passionate." Hyun took his seat at the head of the table. "Passion, anger, love, fear, these aren't weaknesses to hide from," he replied. "They're tools to master and use. The galaxy spent so long trying to be perfectly logical and peaceful that you forgot how to fight for what matters." Ambassador Jihan stood to present the new Galactic Charter. The document had been signed by every surviving species, including many who had once considered humans too primitive to deserve council membership. The changes were revolutionary. Human military doctrine was now the standard for all galactic defense forces. Every major world would host a human tactical academy. All council species would receive training in what humans called emotional warfare, using passion and determination as weapons against enemies who only understood cold logic. The old council believed that civilization meant removing all violence from society, Jihan explained to the assembled delegates. "But we've learned that sometimes violence is the only language that genocidal monsters understand." Captain Minho watched from his position as Director of Interspecies Relations. The job hadn't existed before the war. No one thought different species needed help understanding each other. Now it was one of the most important positions in the galaxy. "The Vorthak are teaching their children human battle songs," he reported with a slight smile. "The Centauri have added aggressive problem-solving to their logic programs. Even the peaceful Etherians have started military training for their youth." The reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. Alien children were learning about human heroes who had saved their worlds. Former pacifist species were building monuments to human soldiers who had died protecting alien civilians. The word human was no longer followed by nervous laughter. It was followed by gratitude and respect. "We spent 10,000 years believing that the most advanced civilization was the most peaceful one," observed a Centauri delegate. "Humans taught us that the most advanced civilization is the one that survives." Admiral Hyun stood to address the council one final time. "When the next threat comes, and it will come, the galaxy will be ready, not because we have the best technology or the most elegant solutions." He looked around the room at faces that belonged to species from hundreds of different worlds. "We'll be ready because we remember what the Zephyrians forgot. We don't fight just to survive. We fight to protect the people we love. We fight with passion. We fight to win." The council session ended with something that had never happened before in galactic history. A standing ovation for the humans who had saved them all. The galaxy had finally learned the most important lesson of all. When extinction comes knocking, you don't want the most civilized species by your side. You want the ones who get passionate enough to fight back and never give up.